Alternative Dig Talk. Real issues, real talk.
Hi, welcome to the Political Dice.
It's
controversial,
purely political,
well researched,
accurate and global.
Oyagala bya parliament oba council.
Yes, state house oba ghetto.
Ani ayuga ku ground.
Ani gwe babuze.
Okimanyi nga Dr. Kiza Mbesija alesa amaanyi.
Olwofadda bafutoli abateeseemu obuvaazi.
Oba yo DP eri kuki?
Olwojema.
Bano ba MKCG bo baddawa.
Abo bafuna CDF bamala tebabanja. Olwo baba ate bange bali kuki?
Abo bo akina kulabisa simanyanga posturing tebabiri bali mu structure building. Naye ate ono ye.
Ani oyo oba?
Ye ali kuki?
Oyo tumuleketa gamba mpanyiga mawu.
Ebe ndabena birindira no ku the Political Dice ku the Alternative Dig Talk nange Teddy Tenjo ewamune
Farida Bikobere
buli wa Sunday
esawa 2.
The Alternative Dig Talk. Real issues, real talk.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Hotline Show. It's a Monday, the 13th day of May 2024. And of course, on a Monday, we are here trying to have a conversation with you people, trying to, understand what is happening in this particular part of the world, meaning Uganda. Thank you so much for everybody who's watching us from as far as the diaspora. I have a gentleman called Kamoga Franklin Gooding. You said I should say hi to you for this particular edition. You are in San Francisco, California. Thank you so much for watching. We also have people watching us in the Middle East, Dubai, Abu Dhabi, Sewankambo, John Lovens. Thank you so much. And of course, those who are watching us from here, it's always humbling that you invest in not only your time, but as well as your resources. The data in this country is very, very expensive, but you invest in your data and you watch us for all these particular 2 hours. It's always really, really humbling. My name is Edgar Mathew Karuhanga. As every Monday, we are always joined by candid gentlemen. Today, Mr. Ochieno Joseph is not with us, but who is with us is Honorable Pollar Awich, who is the director from the National Resistance Movement External Affairs. He's already here, Honorable, and of course we are joined by the Executive Director for the Center for African Affairs and Diplomatic Studies, that is CAADS, Mr. Charles Kazooba. They are with us today, and of course, as you already know, our main topic of discussion are the foreign sanctions. And we're not only just going to look at Anita, there are many sanctions that have come about. What do these sanctions really mean for Ugandans? And of course, for the people who are culpable or who have fallen prey to these particular sanctions, what does this mean? Last week, we had the United Kingdom release a document or information confirming that they have frozen some of the assets and of course some of the accounts of the Honorable Speaker of Parliament. They cited out her involvement in the fraudulent acquiring of Mabati iron sheets, as they have come to be termed these days. They call it the Mabati saga. There were iron sheets that were belonging or were to go to the Karamoja, or the people of Karamoja, but unfortunately they were not able to reach their destination. So in that regard, we had the UK come out and of course say that they have sanctioned the Speaker of Parliament and also the ministers, Mary Goretti Kitutu, and of course her deputy, that is Agnes Nandutu. The question is, were these the only people who were part of this particular saga? Are they the only people who should be sanctioned? Why them and why at a time such as this one? A few days after that, we also had Dubai, that is the Middle East, UAE, coming out to also confirm that they are also sanctioning Honorable Anita Among. So the question is, Anita Among, sorry. So the question is, what do these sanctions really mean for her? And of course, is this something that is going to be a tool to be used for fighting corruption in this country? Then we also had Mr. President, that is President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, coming out, first of all defending Anita Among, saying that these are allegations and they are not confirmed. But unfortunately, we are now seeing the president releasing a document talking about the UK sanctions. And of course, there are some things here and there that the president was trying to highlight, talk about, say, is it true that the Honorable Anita Among has houses there in the UK? Does she have accounts? And in case she has accounts, how did she acquire these particular accounts and assets? Are they declared in the leadership code? That is, those are some of the few highlights or some of the few insights that the president was trying to point out. We also have another letter that we have not yet fact-checked, so I'm not going to confirm it, but this letter also purports to be from His Excellency Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, and in here he also talks about the illegality of the service awards that were given by the Parliamentary Commission. Earlier on, you remember that we found out that 1.7 billion shillings was actually allocated to the three commissioners from NRM and of course the leader of opposition, plus the speaker herself. So we ask ourselves, what does this mean for Honorable Anita Among? She has been a stronghold in the national resistance movement, and she has been that person that you may say wields a lot of power today, because she is the Speaker of Parliament. Where does this leave the August House, and of course where does this leave the national resistance movement? What you can do in case you want to join this conversation is just send me a message directly through our social media platforms. That is at the Alternative Uganda at Digitalk TV. You can also send us your message. I will be reading them. Or alternatively, you can also just comment in this particular live stream. I will be reading your messages subsequently as we continue with the program. Allow me welcome our guests for the day. I'll start with you, Charles Kazooba. You're welcome, sir, and it's always humbling to have you here.
Thank you so much, Edgar.
Yes, sir.
And Digitalk TV. You know, this platform with the new media, we reach a lot of young people.
Yeah.
And looking at our population as a country,
yes, sir,
it is mostly made up by the young people. Actually, until I look at the statistics of this census. But I've been looking at figures, and shockingly,
yes, sir,
those figures show that only 2% are above, is it 60 years?
Yeah.
2%, can you imagine?
Yes.
So this country is mostly made up by, or made up of young people.
Yes.
You know, I kept asking myself, when I'm in a taxi, why do people call me Muzee? Even somewhere else, Muzee. But I don't feel that I'm Muzee. Because those days of ours, calling somebody Muzee would be 70s, 60s and 80s.
Yes.
So this platform is good for the young people. We reach them. First of all, let me start with the trade talks between our traders and His Excellency the President. That meeting at Kololo, it did not go as expected diplomatically, because I think, first of all, there was a mistake. The organizers themselves made a mistake on putting together that meeting. It appeared more like a rally. People were so angry, and they were expressing bitterness. So in light of the bitterness, there couldn't be consensus on what issues to be done, what issues to be resolved. It was very unfortunate, but also it is good that at least the traders expressed their grievances. I looked at most of them. They are young people, very young people.
Yes. And
I have interacted with some of them. They will tell you they used to bring in, one person would bring in a container, fortunate, but today they have to, what they call groupage.
Yes.
So many people
All of
come
you
together.
come together.
So which means business is dying. But also they didn't appreciate the president's view that actually he wants the economy to shift from depending on others, that is through imports of unnecessary commodities, and focus on exporting our locally manufactured and processed commodities. That is a long-term project, and it requires deliberate mechanisms by government to put in place that transition. Otherwise, it's not achievable now, because what the president did not, the information probably he didn't get is that he's dealing with the new business people, because these are young people from university. They start small with their capital, 2 million, 3 million. Then they end up in CAADS and Chikubo they keep accumulating their capital. As their capital grows, they also grow. So he's not talking, he wasn't talking to traders of 1990s. Those traders are no longer there. He's talking to traders who have come into business in 2000, 2005, 2010.
Does that legitimize them not wanting to pay tax? Because when you look at this,
it is not about tax. I heard the guy from Kasita explain it. It is not about paying tax. It is about understanding how they are operating. You have to appreciate how they operate. Then you can levy the taxes that you want. But you must understand how they are operating. For instance, I'll give you an example. The argument of the threshold on VAT, that there are those who have not met that threshold. They have not yet been able to sell goods of up to 150 million shillings in a year. These small people that I'm telling you who have come from university. However, in their day-to-day transactions, they deal with other people who are on IFRIS, who are paying VAT. So how does this person, how do you cater for this person? Because this guy, the manufacturer, is going to charge, if he's transacting with a small person, he will charge this person VAT.
The VAT, yes. Because he also pays.
But this person cannot claim that VAT because he has not met the threshold.
The 150 million.
So he loses. He loses.
But he already pays the tax.
Yes, you have paid the VAT. But you
it's
can't
not,
claim it.
does not trickle down this side.
So that was a valid argument. Two, the stocking business people at their premises by Uganda Revenue Authority. If they believe in that system that it is efficient, then why stock them?
Okay.
Yeah, please give them privacy so that they can operate well. I'm hoping that the president can meet again these leaders, although they appeared to be a little bit hostile.
They're too angry.
But even if you're too angry, there is a government.
Okay.
They took on parliament, they took on the president, they took on cabinet. So whom are they going to talk to?
That's a good question. Okay, I have Mwesige Joram from Kienjojo watching. Then there's Godwin Toko. Thank you so much for watching. There's a gentleman, Makolo Kavuma, also watching. Thank you so much, sir, for watching. Let me come to you, Honorable Awich. You're welcome to the Interface Show. He has started off on a high note, but I want you to just first greet us and welcome back, sir, before, in case you have something to add on what he said.
Not much, but welcoming me back would just make me share what I had in experience in my trip. You remember, I was here and I was going to India. And that reminds me, because my colleagues were saying our friends as parties are questionable, because we went to Venezuela, but no, this time I was in India. India says that on their top 15 priority countries in the entire world, Uganda is one of them. That's why we are happy to associate with them. They are very democratic. They are going to have election, or they are actually in election now. And they had called me to oversee. Do you know that the India voters, it's about 1 billion.
Yes.
The voters alone are nearly, if you remove China, they're almost the entire population of the world voting. Uganda, Tanzania, UK, America, and the rest, they almost total or even less. The entire voting world of the world. Wow. But also, They even want everybody to express his opinion to vote.
So every
How do
person
they
counts.
do it? They even have motivation, like they pick raffle among voters, those who have voted. You win a fridge, you win a TV, you win what? They really want to motivate people to vote. Okay?
Yes, sir.
Again, in remote places, they want everybody to vote. They told us that the remotest place where there's a booth for voting has 3 voters. They make sure even the remote in some mountain, those 3 voters must vote secret ballot.
Wow.
So they are really good, and they said they really love Uganda, and we are top on their 15 countries. Now, about my friend's comment about age, it is true that we are having a younger population. Much as on record we have life expectancy has grown up from 43 something to around 60, but still we are low. To this effect, I will even mention India. India has 250,000 people who are above 100 years. 250,000 above 100 years. They were telling us that Japan is more than them.
Japan is more. Yeah,
Japan is more than them, but they said they will achieve that in near future. On the age again, I was in Germany. I was staying with a professor friend. We are together as judges in Geneva. So I boarded a bus, and when I reached home, I told my friend, the professor, that, Prof, it looks like I boarded the wrong bus. He asked me why. I said the youngest person in this bus was like 65 years. So I thought I'd boarded a bus for the elderly. He said, no, that is the population here. We don't have children. Here people, everybody is old.
Italy.
And that now explains the situation of fluidity of labor. That's why you see a lot of labor movement around the world, because of imbalance on age. That's why UN came up with a convention on migrant workers. Convention on migrant workers to protect the rights of the labor force that is moving around. And that's why you find a country like Philippines, they export 11 million nurses around the world.
That's true.
Mexico has 11 million workers in USA. In fact, Mexico acted a film, said 1 minute without Mexican, because they said the Americans are harassing us that we are working in their country. Can you have 1 minute without Mexican? US would close. We are the ones working in your toilet. We are the ones working in factories. We are what? So why are you proud of us? So now, this now brings me home. The life expectancy that has increased, and yet we still have a big population of the young. Possibly, progressively, we shall also have the old. But even like he says, when I was young, we used to have very many old people. You'd even fear to pass around that road. Like the village path, there's some village path we used to fear because there are very many old people. No, they were so old you'd think they are even animals. Or you'd think they would eat you. Little did we know that it was actually a positive thing of long life expectancy.
Yes, yes.
The long life expectancy, for us, we didn't know that it was something good, that people are living longer, because you'd even fear to pass that path.
But Honorable, why do the young people have a feeling that they are competing with you, the old? Have you really empowered these young people to take up the spaces that their witches are leaving behind? Because as a witch is growing, he's leaving a Karuhanga to come and take over. But it feels like Karuhanga is competing with a witch.
Of course, the age and that element of competition is all about also biological system. There's the vigor and the age where you think you have that urge of pushing, to the extent that even a girl at 19 years doesn't know that the grandmother was one time 19 years. She actually thinks she's the first girl. He said, come on, even your grandmother was 19 years. So you have that urge. It is a biological effect. You have the push, you have the strength, and you want to push it. You actually think, even in a classroom, you think you know better than your professors. And yet your professor passed there and possibly even passed in a grade that you yourself, the student, will not get. But I think it's a biological effect also on the growing up. but also sometimes in some people it's a mental state of the mind. Some people are generally indisciplined depending on how they grow up. But there should be a mutual understanding between the young and the old. For example, me, I will not compete with any young because I did my best. At a very young age, I was already fighting in the army. By senior 1, I was a second lieutenant. Senior 5, I was a full lieutenant. I finished university when I was a captain. We are from NRA Kadogo. So whatever I do, when I look at the youth, I said, man, I wish you knew where we passed from. So your youth goes slow because I've seen it. So I'm not competing with anybody. In any case, our elders, we should thank them because whatever they have passed through, you are yet to pass through. He has seen malaria. He has survived gunshots. He has survived a motor accident, plane crash. Tomorrow you might die of diarrhea, and then you say what? Okay, if you think being old is bad, then you commit suicide because you will die. Will also grow old. If you think the old is bad, and because you are young, so to avoid going to be old, you commit suicide today. Say, me, I don't want to be old. But the society is made of that. It is only prudent that the old and the young be together because the old actually should see the youth like, I am moving forward to prepare a way for the young. Personally, I have no conflict because I'm confident about my youthful days. I know I've used it very well. I therefore think just the young should follow whatever we have done or even do better than what I've done.
So it's a process. You can't be Honorable Awich in a minute. It takes a long time.
It takes a while.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Let me come to the issue of the traders. Do you think your chairperson handled this particular issue very well? Because he has stood his ground. He's saying this is a form of tax that you should pay. And these people are also saying it is illegitimate for you, Mr. President, to impose that tax on us and also end up imposing it on the Ugandan that is down there. So do you think your chairperson has actually handled this matter in a way that is good?
Yeah, yes. You see, I was telling some friend that even the approach Museveni used is what we have done it before in the army, in NRA, our revolutionary methods of work. For example, you want to meet people. You don't meet with a preconceived views of what you want, or you just listen from there. What do you have to say? With a view of developing a consensus. Or if a matter that you didn't know and you need to consult, you defer, you said we shall have another meeting, or I will consult. This is why some people thought that by that approach, the president was not prepared, that he wasn't prepared. I said, no, that is the revolutionary methods of work. We hear from there the objective analysis, to listen from the objectivity, the objective condition on the ground, and respond accordingly. It doesn't matter if you don't have an answer, you'll do it. So that approach alone made some people think that Museveni would have gone to read a text, to dictate a position, and not to listen. Of course, that method has its risk in that some people can abuse it. You can see how it almost turns out to be rowdy. And yet, they think that the president would have been the president. That he goes and said, 1, 2, 3, 4, finish. No. So, the legitimacy cannot arise because the law provides that there's no taxation without illegality. You can't levy a tax without a legal basis. So you can't now say, therefore, that any tax is illegitimate because it's a law. In fact, the traders should be targeting the lawmakers. Only what happens is that a law is not static and frozen. Once a law is passed, it is legitimate.
Yes, sir.
Then, when we set a law in motion, you see cracks. That is why there's provision for amendments of the law. If that was not the case, then we would have had law today and forever. So the legitimacy cannot be adduced to the president or to non-existence of the legality. It's legitimate, it is legal. The only thing is like any other law. You can set, for example, today, the law that the age of drinking alcohol for children is 15. And then when you set the law in motion, tomorrow you'll no, I think this 15 is not the correct one. Let us reduce to 13. So you are men. You said no access to alcohol but yet when you passed the age 15, you thought you had passed a good law.
Yes.
So like in another law, you put it to the test, it has cracked. So the question of legitimacy doesn't arise. It is lawful, and if it is not lawful, it's parliament. But being the government initiates legislation and it goes back to parliament through the cabinet. So the government legislates. It's like when you were in the university in Makerere doing law. Some laws would appear so ridiculous. For example, you come across some law in family law which says if you get somebody with your wife, you pays 5 shillings. And then the man says that law is bad. The professor will tell you, mine, I'm teaching you the law. I'm not a lawmaker. I don't make laws.
Morality and the law are two different things.
I don't make laws. For example, we once had a law which the Karamoja Act, which provides that if 5 Karamojong are found together, they should be arrested and charged because the presumption is that they are from raiding. So suppose there are 5 Karamojong in the State House meeting Museveni. Do you arrest them? Or 5 Karamojong in Makerere, students walking. Do you arrest them? Because the ingredient is the number 5.
Okay.
The second ingredient, they should be Karamojong. So once those 2 ingredients are met, so laws and it come to be amended. So like in the case of the laws on taxation, it is legitimate, it is a law, but can be amended. So my chairman handled it well. In this case, of course, my chairman of the party is President Museveni. He handled it well. Only that people will have to get to be used to our methods of work, our revolutionary methods of work, where you take to people objectively, want to get their views, want to listen. It makes you, it renders you like you were not prepared. And yet that is a deliberate
You want to listen.
method.
But my other question would be, this president says they will not scare him. Do you think the traders are trying to blackmail the president in some way into assenting to a tax policy that may not really be favorable? Or what is your take? Do you think they have a point somewhere? Or they are just trying to cry foul play?
Two things there. About scaring, about them having a point. About scaring, of course, the president was referring to their undiplomatic or rude way of communicating their views. And also the way they are pressing what they think is right. They are pressing what they think is right in their views, but also the way they are communicating their views was rude, was unruly. Of course, the president will always listen to anybody, but then it must be in an orderly way. So once you become rude and unruly, that's when he says you are scaring. About what? The other aspect you said about...
Do these taxes, do you think that these taxmen have, these traders have a point when it comes to the tax itself, this IFRIs and the 15% really?
That is what we are trying to interrogate. For example, it was not clear to them whether VAT was a tax burden on them. Okay?
Yeah.
They argued it as if VAT was their problem. But as the president explained, it is not them to pay VAT, it is the consumer. So they should be arguing about procedures of collecting VAT. So the issue is the procedural aspect. But at the face of it all, what we call prima facie, they made it look like you are putting VAT on us. You are putting VAT on us. Okay? So now about whether they have a point or not, you can see some of those misconceptions where a concept is completely disoriented and misinterpreted. But as it is, the president, I think, promised to meet them again. So it is discussion in progress. So if they have an issue, still it will be discussed. But if they have a wrong issue, for example, you said you are pushing VAT on me, the trader. Okay? He said, am I putting VAT on you? My friend can explain. Am I putting VAT on you, or I'm putting the process of collecting VAT on you?
You're giving me the risk of the VAT, because that VAT can make people run away from my business, not consume.
So whether they have a point or not, it's work in progress. But even then, when they bring it, issues that is a distortion, issues that is a misinterpretation will always be cleared, like I gave you the example of that.
And lastly, I'm sorry for putting you on the spot. I have a few messages here. I'll be reading them from Joram Mwesige. But sorry for putting you on the spot. This is about the national census that is going on. Ugandans feel they do not trust you. Like, they do not trust their government. Even people are susceptible or are skeptical about the population census itself. Do you feel, as the leadership, do you feel this is happening? Do you feel there is a mistrust from you? Because every program that the government will roll out, a Ugandan will always find fault in it. Why is it that your people that you lead do not really believe in you as a leader?
I don't think people don't believe in us. I wonder where you get that data that proves. Because hearing from Mr. X, Mr. Y, Mr. Z does not amount to a conclusion. If anything, the nearest litmus test we have come across having no trust in us is the routine 5-year election. That's the only test. But otherwise, you can find there are very many silent voices who agree with the situation. And 1 or 2 voices will make you conclude that it is that. In any case, people will always have something to say. You know the democracy we have. We have opposition, we have all that. So they could also be pronounced in whatever they are saying. After all, I keep giving reference to my great musician, Lucky Dube. Lucky Dube says in a song called I Have Got Jah, he says, if you keep telling people what you don't know, they will hate you. If you tell them about yourself that you know, they'll say you're boasting. If you tell them about somebody else, they'll say you are gossiping. 3 things. Tell them about what you don't know, they hate you. Tell them about yourself, say you're boasting. Tell them about somebody else,
you're gossiping.
You're gossiping. So he says the only person who doesn't care when you tell people about his name is Jah. So in other words, that is people's mindset. Whatever you say, especially in a democratic situation, they'll say people are opposed. But for us, we know that people still, there are indicators. I told you already, indicator of the 5 years that people are okay. We vote and we win. There are government programs like a Myoga, like Paris Development Model. We have seen people's response. People apply, people come for it, and people are implementing. So don't be deceived that it is conclusive to hear on a WhatsApp from opposition here and then and say, people are suspicious about NRM. People don't want to know. Then we shall. That is why we have a provision of 5 years. Regular voting. And we test people's response.
Allow me read the messages that we have here before we enter our topic of discussion. This is Mwesige Joram from Kenjojo. Thank you so much, sir, for watching. He says the actions of the government are more dangerous and rude than the speeches of traders. That is the problem of Museveni and his government. He continues and says the VAT is problematic. Traders are forced to pay and collect the VAT for government. And he finishes by saying the entire process is costly for a trader. The double pay, the use of a lot of time, which is money. The traders buy machines, then buy internet. They operate it on behalf of the government. The cost is exorbitant for the trader. Let me come to you. Is there anything you want to add on this particular issue? Because he highlights a lot of things.
Yes. The president has a very difficult mindset when dealing with people in Chikubo and CAADS. He really thinks they are a burden to the country. And that's why his mindset becomes a problem when you are engaging him on issues of import trade. Now, when these young people were angry, it is because of that president's mindset. He doesn't appear to be appreciating that they make a contribution to revenue. But it is understandable that maybe with time they can reach consensus. Because if you're going to get a manufacturer 20 years from today, if you put in place good policies as government, and you are very supportive, that person today is a trader. Eventually, he will grow into a manufacturer.
Yes, sir.
The Madvanis, the Mukwanos, they have all come from, at some point, they participated in that
The
trade.
Wavamunos.
Yes.
Yeah.
And slowly, they have grown into huge people. I mean, in terms of companies. Now, the president has to support them.
Yes, sir.
I really implore him to put in a place something like a fund for traders to transition from this normal trading into manufacturing. It has to be there.
Okay.
And the policies should also favor the traders. Let me give you an example.
As you conclude, yeah.
A young person has come from Makerere with little savings and has started off that self-employment, that trade. Why don't you give this person a tax waiver for 5 years?
Because you give it to an investor coming from...
Up to today, I've failed to understand it. So the president should start looking at the indigenous people. We can actually support our country before running around bringing in the Chinese and these other people. After all, we even give them everything. So he should focus on the indigenous people. One word on the census. I was counted today because my area revolves around research, so I value statistics. But I think there is going to be a challenge for the Bureau of Statistics, because where I stay, our enumerator is spending close to between 45 to an hour
On one person?
on one person, on a household. So by the end of the day, that person has done at maximum 10, maximum. It means in 10 days, that person will have done 100 households.
Yeah.
So if there are 100,000 enumerators times 100 households, that will be the work that they will have
10
done.
million.
I thought these people should have taken advantage of technology.
Don't they have those gadgets, the machines?
Leave alone the gadgets. I have the form on my I received it on WhatsApp. They could have allowed us to fill in these forms on our own and send them back.
But not many people have access to the internet.
Yes,
and
and
devices
that,
such
but I'm
as
saying,
these.
I'm arguing that that provision should have been there. There are people that don't have a lot of time to waste. Me, since the census started, I had to stay home till today when I was counted. Not many people have that patience.
Yes, that's true.
So that provision should have been there. After all, we have so many young people who are educated, who could have filled in those forms with those details and sent them.
Okay.
I hope next time that in fact, even in the apart NRM, when it came to registration, I was surprised. Yeah, putting people in the villages, this technology is there. You utilize it. People are now applying for passports online. They're applying for national IDs online. So why can't other things be accommodated online?
Like that. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, gentlemen. 47 minutes past 7 p.m. I have people laughing here. This one says Museveni has a wrong mindset. He laughs and says he believes you very well. Guys, I'll be reading your messages as we continue with the program, but allow me introduce the topic of discussion today. Which are these impending sanctions that we are seeing? Are they something that we really need today? I'm going to start with you, Mr. Kazooba, if you don't mind.
So
First of all, Ugandan there may understand the context of these particular sanctions against the speaker herself. Those are the ones that I want us to talk about. Is there a need for sanctioning the speaker? That's my first question to you, sir.
First of all, me, I'm a very radical person when it comes to corruption. Anybody that steals public resources, that person should be eliminated. Let me tell you, it's not enough to sanction them. I have been thinking, and very seriously, these people, there has to be an international court. Because when you look at the gravity of the crime of corruption, the damage you do to your people, the loss you cause to your country, it is not enough to just freeze your assets and then they stop you from boarding aeroplanes. No, that is not enough. I think we should go beyond that. People should be indicted the way perpetrators of crimes against humanity are indicted. You go and they prosecute you. Why? Because where we've reached, it appears as a country, we cannot handle corruption on our own. I think that is the bitter truth. We have failed. Every attempt seems to be heading in the wrong direction. And of course, understandably, because like I've told you, I have accused Major which is people and the party that it has been their policy. NRM has thrived on corruption.
So without corruption, there is no NRM.
How will you get the support? It becomes tricky after all that time. You have to compromise people to get their support. You either compromise them, you rent support, or you coerce them. So you can compromise them by offering them jobs. You can compromise them by giving them tenders, businesses, or even bribes.
Money itself.
Yes, money, cash. You do it. So that's, you're literally renting support from the population. Because it is not sustainable after all this time to have support. It is not. By looking at especially the things that have not been achieved so far.
But what do you mean support? I'm sorry for interrupting you there. The gentlemen that you said don't have support, first of all, they have a minimum of 5 to 6 people per village. These people that you're saying don't have support have even members of parliament in places where the opposition does not even have a candidate there. They even bring MPs unopposed in the entire country. The people you're saying are not really, don't have support, have been winning elections for the past 5 to 6 terms, and it has been legitimate, and they have had areas where nobody has scored anything. Literally, it has been cleaned by NRM. Is that a populace that you say is really not supported? Or it's just an idea that we try to enforce on Ugandans?
First of all, our democracy is very young. Very, very young compared to the developed world. Even the system of democracy that was brought onto us, we don't understand it. We don't. For instance, the principle of fair competition is not appreciated by anybody. Look at all the parties internally before you even go to the national stage. Fair competition is not appreciated. People want to own organizations, own institutions.
It's about them.
It's about them. Now, NRM, people go to NRM to have opportunity to win elections. Why? Because you are sponsored by the state machinery. If you don't get money, then the DPC in your area will not touch you. Yes. Probably the army commander will leave you. Now that state machinery, whether directly or indirectly, helps you to win a constituency, especially when you go to up country.
Yeah. But how do you explain the 93% that they swept in the LC1 elections? That means every village in this country, they had a member there. 93%. How do you explain that? Do they fund every LC1?
Do you really think that we've not had LC1 elections because of funds?
So they say.
Or it could be a political decision. Because we had just come from a very bitterly contested election, national election of 2021. Had you held LOC elections immediately thereafter, there's a possibility that NRM would have lost ground in a huge part of the country. So it is not true that NRM is everywhere when it comes to the local councils. It is not true. Like I've told you, people now are in NRM because of what they can get from there, not because they love it.
Not because of the idea.
Because let me ask you.
Yes, sir.
Today, the speaker is accused of corruption. If you look at the values of NRM, how could she have gotten corrupt? It means that they do not believe in their own value system, in their own ideology. So that's why there is a stampede in looting. Everybody takes whatever he or she can come across. And that becomes a problem for the country, of course.
Okay, maybe lastly, before we go for the break, is they are not the only people who took the Mabati. It is not the speaker, it's not Kitutu, it's not Nandutu alone.
Yes.
They had the vice president take Mabati, the prime minister took Mabati, other ministers took Mabati, the finance minister himself took Mabati. Literally everybody took Mabati. Can you now concur with what Amongo was saying, that I'm being the sacrificial lamb for all Ugandans?
No, I think that was a very lazy assertion, very lazy argument by the speaker. For the iron sheets, I have argued over and over again that the architects of that theft were the two, because they were in charge of that ministry. There is no way they can go off the hook. Actually, their case tantamounts to treason. If they had a serious government in place, they would have been tried for treason. You know why? They tried to collapse the entire government, and it was deliberate. From speaker, vice president, ministers, members of parliament, everybody was given those iron sheets, whether knowingly or unknowingly. What was the intention? So those two.
Well, that's how they do it.
And I don't say it because of any. Nandutu actually is my friend. I'm one of the people that pushed him into elections. And by good luck, she ended up a minister. But their conduct, and that's why I don't agree that everybody should have been brought on board. Otherwise, you would have collapsed the entire government. So for those two, I agree. Although I don't know how the sanctions usually will help the two, because I don't believe Nandutu even has any property outside the country. I realize not even a bank account, so they may not really affect her at all. But since they are in court, then court can decide on their fate, those two. Yeah.
But we also have, we are hearing that USA is also pinking some of those sanctions, but we shall be talking about that and much more. I have a message from Kalyango Musamte Sasida, and there's also another one that says the speaker and the entire government are more dangerous than armed highway robbers. Let's go, ladies and gentlemen, for a short commercial break. When I come back, I'm going to come back with Honorable Awich, and of course he starts from there. What does he think of these sanctions, and of course, are these the right, is this the right way to really go to address corruption as a problem here. My name is Edgar Mathew Karuhanga. Please send in those messages. When I come back from the short commercial break, I'll be reading some of them.
The Alternative Dig Talk. Real issues, real talk.
Go to the church, though.
Tawali man, what's up?
Man, can you imagine people just dump everywhere? Someone drinks water and throws the bottle wherever.
Come on, Rogers. What else do you expect people to do with an empty bottle?
Simanya now, recorder. Did you know that plastics take at least 450 years to decompose?
What? That's a long time.
Exactly. Because plastics are made out of a lightweight and flexible material that doesn't decompose easily. And plastics everywhere in the environment cause plastic pollution.
What is plastic pollution now?
It is the accumulation of plastic waste in the environment, like bottles, polythene bags, straws. All of these contribute to plastic pollution.
I have been using them without knowing their effect.
Yeah, a lot of people have. Plastics are a danger to the ecosystem, both on land and in water.
So how can we overcome this problem? Is there something we can do?
Oh yes, we can reduce by minimizing the use of plastics, reuse by repurposing them, or recycle by collecting and processing them into new products.
Everyone wants to change the world, but no one wants to change themselves for the world.
How about we change our habits for the world?
And it starts with me and you.
This message is brought to you by Alternative Digitalk.
Hi, welcome to the Political Dice.
Empishi ya byobufuzi.
It's controversial,
Purely political,
well researched,
accurate and global.
Oyagala bya parliament oba council.
bya state house oba ghetto.
Ani ayugayuga ku ground.
Ani bwe babuze.
Okimanyi nga Dr. Kizza Besigye aleese amaanyi.
Olwofadda bafutoli abateeseemu obuvaazi.
Oba yo DP eri kuki?
Olwojema.
Bano ba MKCG bo baddawa.
Abo bafuna CDF baamala tebabanja. Olwo baba ate bange bali kuki?
Abo bo akina kulabisa simayanga posturing tebabiri bali mu structure building. Naye ate ono ye.
Ani oyo oba?
Ye ali kuki?
Oyo tumuleketa gamu apanyiga mawu.
Ebe ndabena birindira noku the Political Dice ku the Alternative Dig Talk nange teditenje ewamune.
Farida Bikobere
Buli wa Sunday
esawa 2.
Hi Rogers, can I ask you something?
Shoot.
What does corruption mean?
Well, summarily, corruption is abuse of public power for personal gain or for the benefit of a group to which one owes allegiance. For example, when a public office is abused by an official accepting or soliciting a bribe. By the way, private people can be corrupt too, like bribing police officers to escape fines.
Okay. So exactly how does that concern me?
Well, do you pay taxes?
I guess, yeah. What does that have to do with this?
Everything. Because those taxes you pay are supposed to facilitate services you use, like water, electricity, roads construction, medicines in hospitals, name it.
Okay, that is much bigger than I thought. But it can be stopped, right?
Well, yes it can, although it may not be as easy as it sounds. And here is the reason why. Corruption roots are grounded in our country's social, political, economic, bureaucratic traditions and policies.
So, what has kept it going this long? I mean, why don't we stop it?
Well, the main reason why it has been here for so long is because institutions are weak, either as a result of poorly defined ethical standards of public service, weak administrative and financial systems, or ineffective watchdog agencies.
What can we do to stop it?
At a national level, we must focus on strengthening the independence and effectiveness of public institutions that fight corruption. At a personal level, we must commit to never giving a bribe.
I promise I'll never give a bribe.
Well, that's a great decision you have made. Me and you now have to spread this message to all our friends. If we all do our part, corruption will be no more.
This message is brought to you by Alternative Digitalk.
The Alternative Dig Talk. Real issues, real talk.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back from that short commercial break. We are into the second and final hour of the show. My name is Edgar Mathew Karuhanga. I'm privileged to be joined by Mr. Charles Kazooba, who is the Executive Director for the Center for African Affairs and Diplomatic Studies, that is CAADS. And of course, I am with Honorable Pollar, Awich. He is the Director for the External Affairs right there at the National Resistance Movement. It's always a privilege having you gentlemen on the show. Let me come to you, Mr. Awich. What is your take on these sanctions that have been meted on, first of all, one of your members, but also the Speaker of Uganda's Parliament? Do you think there is a reason or these sanctions are justified in some way?
Okay, thank you so much. I always say that when we discuss, we should also take the time to share our experience and knowledge so that it helps us education on some specific topics to the audience. So I think I would take this opportunity to let the audience know what sanctions is. Even if we can now just use it as a torch on specific persons, whether it is Anita or Kelo or P or what, but I want them to know what sanctions are. But before I make them know what sanctions, there are some comments that my colleague made that I want to clarify on the issue that NRM survives on corruption or whether NRM is everywhere or not. Definitely NRM is everywhere. To the extent that where we have fielded even LC1 election, in the one we had, we didn't have, you can't tell me you can go, actually in the entire Choli or Lango and Teso and Karamoja and even West Nile, that you will say NUP is so popular and they have chairman candidates for LC1. No, they don't. And NRM has. Now, two, if you want to know that NRM is everywhere, of all about 74,000 villages, everybody has a yellow bicycle. That shows you a yellow bicycle was given at a village level.
Every village.
We are everywhere. There's a yellow bicycle, even in the mountains in Rwenzori, even in the mountain of Kisoro, even in the mountains in Karamoja, you'll get a yellow bicycle. That's a sign that we are everywhere. No candidate can put a candidate everywhere. So we're everywhere.
That's true.
Now, on the question of surviving on corruption, or put it the other way, on material gains, I mean, we say, we confess that the only way people will love NRM is on how we meet their needs. We meet their needs. For example, you are putting programs, develop program like a Paris development model, like a Myoga, like all these projects of which can contribute to the welfare or be income generating. We do it. It is deliberate. It is a way of making sure that the well-being of our people are brought up. So are we saying our people are coming, they should love NRM because of spiritual needs? We are not a religious organization. But when they come and we meet their needs, it must be legitimate needs. If it is a tender or contract that it is said, the law on tender is very exhaustive on how to access tender. It must be lawful, it must be legitimate. In fact, in some areas like in Lango, if you're NRM, you lose out on tender. Okay? This is it. So we don't shy away from the fact that our people come because we meet their material needs. It is designed that our people come, we meet their needs. But the way we meet needs are legitimate and properly designed by government. They don't come to us because of spiritual needs, no. So if it is meeting the needs of the people, we plead guilty. And we do think that we can win the next election in our ability to meet the needs and the interests of the people. So I want to comment now about sanction. I like to start by saying a sanction like in the UK case is following an act of parliament of UK. UK passes a law saying the Global Anti-Corruption Act. You know, in a law they state the objective. The objective is to penalize anybody who is involved in corruption. Now, just a minute. How does a law of a particular country work against others? For them, they think that it is their law. It is their law in their parliament. But they know that the global trend is against, corruption is on the increase. So they say it's our law, but if you rub shoulders with any British interest, that is where they get you. It is their law, but we can only sanction you on matters that affect our country. Okay? So this is why this law, why the Speaker of Parliament is being sanctioned. The Speaker of Parliament is being sanctioned on the basis of an act of Parliament of UK. They passed a law in Parliament saying we shall do that. So what does this mean, therefore? If you don't rub shoulders with UK interest, then you are safe. You are safe. But I can assure you it is difficult not to rub shoulders. And that's why when my friend was saying the other two ministers have nothing abroad and they want, I was looking at him and said, boss, be careful. I give an example of my experience in UN. I've been a UN at a judge level of human rights for 8 years in Geneva. Now, one time they told us to do a security training. I have shared this experience before because it demonstrates how institutional sanctions work. So they told us to do a security training. Simple security training like, if you are running on the road jogging, please don't jog on this side.
Do you run from?
To let the cars come from behind you. Yes. They'll knock you. You jog from the other side. Because even in Kampala, please, I drive a Land Cruiser, but sometimes my head is not working. You can be walking on the road. The man driving the Land Cruiser, you don't know what is in his head.
Exactly.
For example, some people wake up in the morning. As they get out of the gate with his wife, you find a concubine with 2 children, and he drops the children. Kwata bana yo. You think that man will drive to town when his head is working? So the security training says run on the other side.
Where you can see a
where you can see staggering, you jump off. You go to Karamoja, you are UN staff. Don't choose a room on floor 8 or floor 1. Choose a room in the middle. Simple security training. So they told us to do it. I didn't do it. Now, when time came for getting air ticket, I rang the air ticket office. I wanted to go back. They said, Mr. Pollar, have you done security training? I said, no, I have not. They said, please, you better do it. I said, no, I will do it when I come back. Please send the ticket. I said, no, it can't. Because it is designed in a way that you do the security training, you pass, the computer will congratulate you, but it generates a number. So this computer number is tagged to your system. Your air ticket cannot come out if you don't have the number. Your checks cannot come out if you don't have the number. Your salary, nothing. So
something that looks small.
Small, it is tagged. So when an act of parliament is passed in UK and it is given to say Okello is sanctioned, is wider and it is institutional. Because this thing is well thought out to the extent that when they want to develop a sanction, they give it to a professor, say, of Harvard University, of London School of Economics. He develops it.
You think of what...
And he just markets to government. Government simply adopts the product. So in this case, a provision is saying as long as you touch anything with the British interest. And where is the British interest? For example, did you know that all these ABSA, Standard Chartered, all these banks are connected to them. They have shares.
That's true.
In the case of America, even African Development Bank, a big share is by Americans. So all these shares, Toyota, everything. So it's difficult. So back to the institutional framework. If they sanction Okello or Opeo, just go to print an air ticket.
You can't.
It won't come. Go to Visa. It won't come. You can even go to buy Toyota. They said no.
You can't sell to you.
Unless you get from anywhere. So the sanctions, one, is so institutionalized that even if the ambassador in Kampala was a friend to you who is sanctioned, she can't give you anything because as they try to type your name,
it's a system issue.
So I wanted us to understand sanctions. One, it's an act of parliament of UK. Two, it is so institutionalized that it is not discretional. That I can waive this or I cannot waive this. No. So it's so serious that it can actually render you useless. So the two ministers, watch out. It wraps them. It reduces you. in ways. You just stumble over it as you try to do this, say no. You try to do this, no. You try to do this, no. You try to, and that is when you're failing. So, the only thing those people have been saying is, there is natural justice of a right to be heard. How can you then condemn me unheard? It is their law, and that is how they have chosen it. So whether you have not been heard, that is not their business. For them, it is enshrined in their law. They have done due diligence under their law to reach the conclusion.
Is she being a sacrificial lamb, like she says?
You see, the way I've explained it is that I wanted it to approach in a case that I don't even care about whether Mr. XYZ is what? Is sanctioned. I just wanted to know in general how sanctions work. Now, if you want to bring me to a particular person, okay, then maybe you can ask your question.
The person of Anita Mongo. Let's conclude.
Yes, about her, the particular case of the speaker.
Yes. Is there a valid reason? Do you think she's being a sacrificial lamb? Or is she the only corrupt person that Uganda has, really? And Kitutu and, and Anita, Agnes Nandutu?
This then goes back to their law. For example, in the case of, he had proposed that this should be a global offense, like the crime against humanity. You see, even in under the Rome Statute, which it takes that crime for at the Hague, the law provides grave for grave offenses, meaning that other offenses, though similar, can be left out. Okay? Now, it is now the discretion of those who judge as grave. So in this case, when you say the speaker is being sacrificial, as opposed to who is being left out, who is what, you can say the other ministers or the beneficiary. But the whole thing is now discretional to them according to their law. They are the ones who know the gravity and the choice, of course, about this. So, whether she's being sacrificed, but to her, the sacrificial nature to the speaker, the sacrificial, I think what it means is that because she passed the law, so she's being sacrificed for the law. I don't know, but the British are saying it's only corruption. And I think you never know, maybe the speaker has a point about the law, but people are questioning, say, but how about the move of the motion? How come the move of the motion is left, if it is this? And then others are saying, but how about Kadaga? She passed the same law. Why not that? So, but whatever it is, the discretional choice of the gravity on who to zero on is under the UK law because the act, that Global Anti-Corruption Act, prescribes how you reach on a candidate to be sanctioned. It is a law. It is not a political statement. Okay. It is a law, and they follow it. So it's up to them.
You have failed to handle corruption as a party, as a government. Because if now these people are coming to handle the issues that you should be handling, don't you feel you have finally failed as a government?
No, as I said, this law is a UK law. It's not about Uganda. The UK law covers all the 193 countries in the world. It is not a law designed for Uganda. It affects Tanzania, Zimbabwe, India, Korea, everywhere.
You at home, you failed.
So because it's only that it has come to be used on our citizens. But the law is for the whole world. Now, for your question as to whether or not we have failed to handle corruption, I think...
It wasn't a question, though. It was a statement that you have failed to handle corruption, according to all the evidence.
Okay, I thought you were even safer with a question than a statement. If I were you, I would put it into a question. You know what? Why you should be safer with a question is, a question gives you immunity. There's a saying that he who asks is not at fault. Yes. In fact, if you wanted to say, Major Witch, you are stupid, don't say, Major Witch, you are stupid. You say, Major Witch, are you not stupid? So please try to put interrogative. You are safer because making assertive statements goes on you. So if you want to, for example, if I were you, would have rather have said, haven't you failed in corruption? But if you chose
Yeah,
deliberately,
yes, that
to
was the diction that I
if
chose.
you chose
really.
to make a deliberate
Because
statement, then it
circumstantial
is
evidence
okay.
can be
And now
evidence.
let me say it was not a question.
Okay, yes,
Although
sir.
I'm saying you, I'm telling you
Yes, sir.
that in ordinary communication, prefer a question. You are safer. Question gives you immunity. Even if you wanted to abuse me, I'm a fool. Put it in a question.
Okay, sir.
Are you not stupid? Even if I said, you said, but I've not said you are stupid. I've just asked you whether you are stupid or not.
Yes, sir.
So I will. So now, in your statement, your assertive statement that we have failed, I don't think so. Because if you say we have failed, it's like you have a standard measure of a success of fighting corruption. For your case, of 193 countries, there is no country which says there is no corruption. The least corrupt countries in the world is Singapore. But even Singapore, they're saying it is not that it is not there. So when you say a country has failed, what do you exactly mean? That what have they achieved? Even in transparency, perception, there's what they call Corruption Perception Index under Transparency International.
Yeah.
Every country is listed, including United States. So when you say we have failed, we have, how? What should we, where is the benchmark? The thing is, you can only judge a country by institutional frameworks. Even human rights areas, you can only judge that these occasions, these occurrences happen. Do you have institutional framework in place? So that is how you judge. You judge, do you have the laws? Yes, we have the laws. Do you have the institutions? Yes. What are those? IGG, CID, courts of law. And there's anti-corruption court. I'm even thinking we should even have anti-corruption prison. So that you move from court anti-corruption court to anti-corruption. So if you judge a country by institutional framework, since we don't have a marking stage, because according to Transparency International, you will see all countries listed. Only that according to the indicators, others are more corrupt than others. Even Singapore, the least corrupt, is still listed in there. So it's not really correct to say you have failed or you have passed. Okay, if we have failed, now which country have passed? Which country has passed?
Singapore.
Oh no, Singapore has not passed. Singapore is also just listed. Can you say Botswana has passed? Or Zambia has passed, or Tanzania has passed? No. So we have institutional frameworks in place.
Okay, let me come to you, Charles. Charles, should we be, in all this saga that is happening, should we be looking at Anita Among? Because it feels like everyone is giving that eye to Anita Among. Is she the right person to be looking at when it comes to the issue of corruption here?
You know, corruption under NRM has not started today. As early as 1987, when they had just come to government, there were ghost civil servants. As early as that time. Then we go to the 90s. A lot of resources were misappropriated in the liberalization process, where government assets were being sold off.
True.
So it started growing and growing and growing. I wanted to first make a clear distinction about, for instance, why the Americans and the British have taken this new initiative of sanctioning individuals on corruption. It is not true, for instance, that they care more about me if I sleep hungry because somebody has stolen public resources here. Their interests are different from the interests of us, the victims of corruption. I'll give you an example. If I go to Mlago and I cannot get the health care I need because somebody has stolen
the medicine
funds meant for that provision. To the American, that is different. It is ordinary. Our concerns, our interests, especially in Africa, our interests are purely social. That government fails to deliver on services. Infrastructure breaks down.
Yes, sir.
That is our major concern as citizens in Africa. But the two countries, the United States of America and Britain, for them their focus is mainly security and stability of the world. So this is where the difference is. They have studied that corruption facilitates money laundering, facilitates tourism, transnational crime, all these things that cause instability of the world. That is why they have strongly decided to begin sanctioning individuals and entities on corruption. In fact, since the Americans reviewed their law on sanctions, that is 2016, they have so far sanctioned about 200. The British have sanctioned about 42 individuals and entities. Now, for them purely it is about security and politics, global politics and security of the world. Why? Because if they intend to do trade with other countries, those countries must be stable. To be stable, these people stealing public resources should be dealt with, because they are facilitating other secondary crime, which is devastating to the world. That is terrorism, drug trafficking, and others. I will give you an example. They sanctioned recently the president of Zimbabwe, Mnangagwa, and 8 officials. And he called the sanctions defamatory, that they were spoiling his name. But when you look at a country like Zimbabwe, they are telling you, since 2003, when as a country it was sanctioned, they have lost over $150 billion. $150 billion that could have benefited the citizens. So these Western people realized that their sanctions, especially the trade embargoes, were affecting the ordinary citizen. And that was also our concern, that when you sanction a country like Uganda, me as Kazooba, I'm not a decision maker. So when I'm affected, how do I
come into this equation,
yes.
really?
So they said, now we are going to start dealing with the individuals. And me, that is why I'm happy. Because if as a country, if as a government, you do not try to handle some of these issues, then the international community comes in, even though it is not in their interests. Because for us, our interests, like I told you, are social services. Theirs is purely politics and security.
And security, yeah.
However, we connect, we come to a meeting point that there are people who with impunity have impoverished their countries, and
Yes,
those
sir.
people must be dealt with. Now, since majority of the citizens cannot deal with those powerful people, the international community can help us. But my argument has been, and is always is, that should go further. It is not enough, for instance, you kicking out the speaker out of the global financial system. That is not enough. Yes, it will hurt her business interests and other personal interests. But how do we get justice as citizens if, and by the way, I forgot to tell you that these, the Americans and the British are focusing on bribery and misappropriation. So those who have been arguing about the speaker's Jew and homosexuality, they should focus on the interests of these people. They are focusing on those two areas, bribery and misappropriation.
Okay.
Now, we as citizens, how do we get justice? Because if you've put to waste 1 trillion Ugandan shillings, how do we get justice for that money? That is why our prayers should be now that the international system should put in a place a court, an international court that handles or judicial system that handles the prostitution of these people, so that it is not enough to sanction you. No.
Okay.
Your country should also hand you over for prostitution.
Okay.
You understand?
Yes, sir.
Because if we keep talking about this sanction, this one, then we are okay. No, we need justice.
Okay, let me ask you something. This is away from that. President Museveni, this year, as he was launching a hospital in Bukedia, came out to support or to defend the Speaker, Aneta Monk. Now he writes a letter in regard to these sanctions. What do you think of the letter that President Museveni wrote? What is it that, what is the vision behind, in your perspective, behind that particular letter?
Have you read Machiavelli?
In just a minute, the producer can be showing us that letter. If it's okay, you can just put it on the screen for our viewers to see. Yes, you're saying Machiavelli.
Have you read Machiavelli?
Yes, dear.
The end justifies the means. Now, our president understands Machiavelli so much, and whenever he does things, I see him in that in the perspective of Machiavelli. Now, the president has his issues. First of all, corruption cannot get him out of government. Corruption instead strengthens him. Because when you steal, you become his hostage. Yes, he will have a file on you. So at any disagreement over a serious issue, then he can pull out your file and say, but Matthew, remember you stole something the other time. I think we should launch your...
That's blackmail.
But it helps for his case, for his administration. He has not been looking at the damage these people are causing to the country. And in my view, I think that is being selfish, because he has focused on sustaining his administration rather than pushing a country to progress without having our resources stolen.
Yes,
so, in the Bukedia, when he went there, I have information to the fact that even the British intelligence was here and investigated Parliament. They even interviewed those staff who today are in the press denying that things are okay. There was nothing wrong. And after the investigation, they shared the report with the president. So the president knew everything, even before this public outcry, because nothing had been published in the public by the social media. The president knew exactly what had transpired, who had stolen, how the money was being stolen. the entire network. He knew because these people shared their findings with him. So, I think even when he was in Bukedia, he knew what would happen. But his game plan, I think, in my view, was not to tackle the speaker now because she was delivering to his satisfaction. She was delivering. Maybe her case would have come much later if she attempted to rebel. But you know, these people, the British are not very patient people.
Okay.
So they moved in fast, I think.
Okay.
Now the president's hand has been forced.
So what we are seeing is just President Museveni pretending to work, but he already knew what was happening.
He knew.
Okay.
He knew, and I can also tell you,
Yes, sir.
the speaker also suspected that he knew.
Okay, because there is a letter right now that I've just received. I've not yet fact-checked it. It's dated the 11th of May, and here the president says the UK sanctions of the Right Honourable Speaker of Parliament and 2 former ministers. I have received a letter from Dr. Patricia Achan Okiria, Deputy Inspector General of Government, on the 9th of May 2024, informing me that the Right Honourable Anita Among never revealed that she had a house in the United Kingdom. Right Honourable Anita Among has told me that she does not own a house or houses in the UK. Then the President writes, therefore, working with the Attorney General, write an appropriate letter to the relevant authorities in UK to demand the source of their information. They cannot falsely accuse any of our people, and we just let it pass. Let me come to you, Honourable. What do you think of the President's reaction in terms of these sanctions, of him looking at and saying, let's investigate, let's find out if surely Honourable Monk has houses in abroad, and you've been in diplomacy. Is it a crime for someone to have property and houses abroad?
The president's response can summarize into 2 ways. First of all, he wants to understand the validity of the claim of the UK. UK are development partners, they are friends, we do a lot with them. So we really need to talk when there are issues between us. So he wants to understand that. The other aspect is he also wants to understand the clappability of the speaker in Uganda jurisdiction. So we start with the UK. He wants to know, for example, if our development partners are accusing our citizens falsely, then we can go back on the round table and talk to them and say, guys, don't you think this is unfair? Remember, I told you that the unfair bit of that Act of Parliament of UK is that it doesn't give you a right to a fair hearing. So it is only your government now that can take steps that would amount to a fair hearing to hear your part of the story. So I think it is proper and fine that the president is trying to do this, to understand if that is so. But also the other aspect, as I said, at the domestic level, what we call the municipal level, that is the domestic law. The president is also saying, possibly this is an opportunity to get to know whether the speaker violated laws in Uganda. If she did, then that would be also a matter to be followed up under the law. You know that Ken Luchamuzi was removed from Parliament for non-declaration because it can be an offense for non-declaration or false declaration. You can declare but falsely, or you can omit to declare. So in this case, the Luchamuzi case is a good example because Luchamuzi did not declare, and IGG went ahead and removed him from Parliament. But Luchamuzi went to court. Ironically, Luchamuzi went to court for Article 44, that you say I didn't declare, and you remove me from Parliament. You didn't hear my story. So Article 44 is a must. Hear him. And Luchamuzi, the court ruled in his favor. Now, that led to a development of our jurisprudence because under the law, there was a provision called IGG tribunal, which is quasi-judicial. It's like high court judges. I have friends there. The judge is no longer. Now, ideally, Luchamus should have been summoned to be heard. You have not declared. What do you say? It doesn't matter whatever he says, but then they will come with a verdict and say, you have violated the law, we are removing
So on
you.
record, at least we had you.
We are removing you.
Yes, sir.
So now, in this case, President Museveni is trying to say, as Anita Mong also done the Luchamuzi way by not declaring. Remember, I had said non-declaration is almost the same as false declaration. Okay, they are listed separately under the law, but it is wrong not to declare, but it's also wrong to falsely declare. So Museveni is trying to understand two things. Our development partners, whether they acted rightly on the information that they have, and also on the other hand, on the domestic provisions, whether Anita was in violation of our law, which is right and see. So if turns out that she doesn't have, remember on the indictment, so to say, on the sanction, the UK did not sanction because she has a house. The UK sanctioned because of corruption.
Yes.
The issue of the house is just coming up because the speaker said, I don't even have a pussycat in UK.
Yes.
Then UK retorted by saying, I don't know whether it is UK or Agatha at Tuhaire. Agatha is the one who reported, or Agatha got it from the UK people. So it now became like an evidence on the side of Uganda. Say, hey, look, just a minute. There's this element coming up of a property in the UK. Did our speaker declare it or not? But the UK is not going to withdraw because there's no house. The UK ground for sanctioning is corruption. And they were specific about the iron seats.
Yes, yeah.
They're specific. Not even any other. Now, my colleague seems to think that they allude to more money. But at least that one did not come out. I think maybe I missed it, but what came out is the indictment or the sanction is on Karamoja iron seats. And that's why they put them together with the two ministers. Okay? Yes, so the house is actually more or less for domestic purposes, for checking the culpability whether or not. Now, I see you want to ask me something. I want to comment about...
Before you leave that point, you see, Matthew, what he is not telling you is that now the NRM is going to pounce on the speaker.
That's where I was going. That's where I wanted us to go. The fact is, people are looking at it from a perspective of now you're starting to offload excess baggage, for lack of a better word, that just trying to eliminate the speaker. She has outlived her importance, and some people have a perspective that her power has become enormous. I won't ask you that because I want to put you in a conflicting loyalty. I'll ask Mr. Kazooba, he will tell me. But do you think they are trying to cut off, as you finish your point, do you think they are trying to cut off, or your people are trying to cut off now among?
No, we are not. The speaker has been doing work and she will continue to do our work. Only that we are trying to see where the law provides. Simple. Because it became a public domain that the speaker doesn't own, in our words, a pussycat in UK. And it comes out that the speaker owns the two houses. So the president just wants to find out, hey, just a minute, is it true? Because you just don't go accusing our cadres anyhow. We find it. She's our senior cadre.
So you're actually defending
so we want to
her.
find out if the accusation on our senior cadre is valid. If we find it's not valid, then we said, please stop maligning our cadres. There's no house in UK. Huh?
If you find it's valid,
then it will be managed.
Okay.
It will be managed. But I have a burning point.
Yeah, finish that point.
Now, my friend talks, and I say this because this is an occasion to share views with our viewers. Sanctions of a country versus individuals, that he says. this is a debate that goes on. For example, during the fight in South Africa, when we wanted the blacks in South Africa to get freedom, all African countries advocated for sanctions against South Africa as a government, not individuals, apartheid people. And by then, the British Prime Minister, Margaret Thatcher, and Reagan, President Reagan of America, especially Thatcher was arguing of constructive engagement with South Africa. For them, they were against the sanctioning of a country that the blacks would suffer. But the blacks said, but we are the ones calling for it. We are ready for it. You sanction the country. So it was a debate. Now, what Uganda and other countries did was that the sanction was so tight on the country to the extent that in Ugandan passport, it was written a Ugandan was free to travel to all countries in the world except South Africa. And it affected South Africa. It contributed to the freedom because it was then that, because for example now, if you ask any white South African, do you want apartheid or not? They don't want it. Why? Because their MTN is now here. Their Absa Bank is now here. Their what is here. They use not to. Their supermarket, we had clocked their economy there because of sanctions. Be with your thing.
Yes.
So it is interesting to hear debates on government or individuals, because I'm saying this because we passed through it during South Africa.
Yes, sir.
Now the need of international approach to corruption. Well, you see, in the internationality of, say, crimes against humanity, you look at it from 2 points. One, who brings this crime to the world? For example, coin. Who took coin to ICC? Coin was taken by Uganda.
Yes.
Uganda said, coin is in Chad, is in Sudan, is outside us, we can't get him, we can't arrest him. So we reported. There can also be an indictment by Security Council. Security Council can indict. Okay?
Yes, sir.
So there are various ways of somebody reaching there. So I don't know if we wanted to do it in this case of corruption. It would mean, therefore, that in your jurisdiction you have failed. True, for you, you seem to say we have failed. So I don't know how we shall now start to report as a government, because the government is the one which went to the ICC and said, coin is outside our jurisdiction. We have failed. Please, the world, you help us. So I just wanted, as we debate whether or not to internationalize it, to say, to address your mind to how a suspect reaches there.
Okay. Okay, Honorable, allow me just read just an insight on from the book of Mr. Norman Tumuhimbi. So Norman Tumuhimbi, but is also the Executive Director for Govt TV. He wrote in his book, it's called The Halloween Bus, Power Talikaba. He has a chapter that is dedicated to Among, and it's like this gentleman predicted how Among would go. He points out in just an incept. He says the other reason as to why Museveni may fight Anita is due to Anita's rural-urban excitement. First, Museveni knows all his thieves. He makes inclusive. However, he is not comfortable with such thieves disclosing what they have stolen. As for Anita, in less than 5 years, as Speaker of Parliament, she is believed to have acquired posh houses in Kampala. The one known being the state-of-the-art home in Ntinda Minister's Village, then this other one opposite High Court Civil Division, which she now uses as her residence, in addition to her hotel-like house in Bukedia district. To exhibit her rural urban excitement, Anita imported the state-of-the-art monster vehicles. Additionally, she gifted her sweetheart, Honorable Magogo, with a brand new Range Rover Vogue. All these are some of Anita's achievements in a space of 2 years. To Museveni, such excited people are a liability to his government. For example, Saleh is one of the richest people Uganda has, but he has never showcased his assets. Anita's exhibition is a clear picture that people occupy political offices to amass wealth at the expense of the rest of Ugandans. It is with this reason that it will fall badly. In fact, I don't see her becoming speaker unless she will serve Museveni's interests. He finishes by saying, I predict that Anita's big wings may not live for long simply because Museveni doesn't stand any other power broker besides Saleh. One of the reasons why Museveni has fought and or destroyed some politicians is because of their excitement, but most importantly, their political ambitions. When Museveni wants to use certain people, he will establish new political appointments, but also in such positions, he will ensure that such a region, despite having a reasonable number of ministers, they continue fighting. For example, during Honorable Kadaga as Speaker of Parliament, Busoga was another power center. Let me come to you. This gentleman points out power. In
When was the book written?
This year. It was written this year, I think, as it was starting. No, last year. Last year, towards the end of last year. That's when this book was actually published. It's called The Halloween Bus, Mpower Talikaba. I'm going to come to you, sir. This gentleman points out excitement. Everybody to know that I have money, which is something that many people have dubbed this speaker one of the most extravagant speakers. You've heard of the term Uganda's Marie Antoinette. But then he also adds in another issue of power. This lady has accumulated a lot of power in her tenure, and you can see this power. The MPs do not speak. When she says something, literally everybody fears to react to that. Do you think this power and excitement has contributed to the impending downfall of Anita Among?
If you are a gentleman,
Yes, sir.
and you begin sleeping around with your maid, there is a possibility that your maid will take on certain posturing that can cause havoc in your house. Now, Anita is, you know, up to today, I keep asking myself, people go to school, they study, but their behavior does not match the years they spend at school. If you observed critically how the state machinery neutralized the Right Honorable Rebecca Kadaga, the successor should have taken precaution in her conduct. Now, Right Honorable Anita appears to have done a lot of work for the president. I think even before she became speaker. That is what I've been hearing. When she became speaker, she acquired accidentally a lot of power. You see, today, I've told people that if you want to kill certain people, give them what they don't expect to get in life. I've, for instance, had a lunch of 7,000. Then as I'm walking home, you give me 2 billion. There's a possibility that I can die. I have seen it. A gentleman was fired at URA. He got a tender of just, I think, 300 million. He went to drink. He came back dead in the morning. That excitement happens.
Yes, sir.
Now, when you accidentally acquire things that you didn't expect, it can cause a problem, not only to yourself, but also to other people.
Bring it home when it comes to Anita.
Now, you saw what happened. Anita never expected at one point to be a speaker. Really, it was by luck, sheer luck, that she became Speaker of Parliament. But because she lacked the grooming, the mentoring to become suitable to that position, she became a problem not only to herself, but also to the country. Now, when she went to show off her mansion in Bukedia and invited General Mohozi, our CDF now, I remember I contacted some people in Mohozi's camp, and I told them, you guys, tell your man not to go to Bukedia, because what I'm seeing, the future is going to be very dark by associating with Right Honorable Among, because she constructed that house after she saw a similar structure at the burial of Right Honorable Jacob Olanya. If my mind is to be certain, she fell in love with the other structure and put it's almost a similar structure, but much bigger.
Okay, as you conclude, because of time.
Now, that was going to be a huge problem, because the country citizens were going through hard times. Hard times coming from COVID. Life is so hard. The situation was not the timing to unveil such wealth. And as if that was not enough, we hear they procured vehicles for themselves. 1 billion, 1.5 billion. Huh? Then you hear she has gifted the boyfriend.
Now, in just a few seconds, because time is going, conclude your point.
That was terrible, terrible for our country. Because even the president, you see, he doesn't show such wealth.
Exactly, exactly. Let me even stop you, Mr. Kazooba, from there. There is an issue of excitement, sir. He termed it as rural urban excitement. What is your comment on this lavish lifestyle of Honorable Anita Among?
Well, I really, as I said earlier, to touch the issue of the speaker, I had wanted, remember in my discussion, I wanted to present sanctions per se.
In general.
So that we can now use sanctions, whether it is applicable on Okello, or Pio, Anita, or anybody. So I am kind of constrained to discuss her as a person, because I would really maybe going personal. And that's why I said that the sanction was basically on Mabati. The sanction was not about her house. And then even now that the president shows interest in the other one, it's because of what came from our mouth. It is from us a submission that she doesn't own anything in UK, and this information comes. So about her, including conspiracy theory that Museveni maybe would have been using her for doing this. No. For us, a speaker is a speaker. She should do something legitimate. And also that we want to throw her out as a NRM.
Her power is too much.
NRM, no. So I would refrain myself from discussing her as a person, including her alleged lavish hairstyle. I mean, a lavish lifestyle. Just to say that the sanction is on Karamoja Iron Seats.
But do you also,
so about
do
other
you see
things,
the lavishness in her?
I so see. I think to that extent, the president only questioned the legitimacy. Did she get the money legitimately or not? Okay. In fact, the president was even hesitant about bank account in London, where she's using to pay her children. The president also said, well, she can have a bank account like any other person, but declare it. Okay? Declare it. It's not bad to have even a house.
Do you think this should be the way when they are dealing with corrupt officials in government? Do you think this should be the style?
Which one?
We see sanctions, then the president coming out. Do you think that's the way to go? In just a minute as we conclude.
About what?
Like the way to go, president picking up from the sanctions and coming to react to them, because it feels like it has not been orchestrated by the president himself. Yet he is the one responsible for this.
Of course, like the case of the iron seats,
Yes, sir.
there was a way government was handling, including prosecuting those we felt were direct offenders. So we're handling, and he says that we can handle either politically or legally.
Yes.
So meaning that even if the speaker was found culpable, maybe there would be a time when should be handled politically. One way of handling politically is to say, we are not giving you the flag again. Okay? We are not giving you the flag again. But that would be at some appropriate time.
Okay.
So for now, the issue was being handled by Uganda.
Okay.
So we still feel that under our jurisdiction, we were handling it properly. Okay. But then the British have their laws, which they passed in their parliament, which they have a right to implement, and it is up to them.
That is retired Major Honorable Pollar Awich. He's Director for the National Resistance Movement, External Affairs. I'll just finish this discussion with a few messages. Jeremy said the entire government is questionable, running a very dangerous system, a stealing system and a murderous one. Those who defend it do so for the love of the money and survival. I'll finish with Mr. Kalyango Musa Mutesa that you say, most so-called countries have achieved their status by promptly paying their taxes. However, this is a generational process. Not as witnessed in the Ugandan methodology, the government is failing its citizens by complicating day-to-day lifestyle. No one would wish to open up a rebellion against the government unless they are left with no choice. Thank you so much, guys, for watching. It is exactly 9 p.m. We come to the end of this discussion. I want to thank you, Charles, and of course thank you, Honorable Pollar, for coming through today. And of course to our viewers, thank you so much. The guys who have sent the messages, there are too many, I couldn't finish a few of them, but thank you so much for watching. We shall come back tomorrow at exactly 8 a.m. Do not miss Farida Bikobere will be here for the Mighty Drive Show. My name is Edgar Mathew Karuhanga. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, it's X, Instagram. I don't think we are there. I'm not there, but they are there. The Alternative Uganda is there, so you can follow us there. Also on TikTok, I think we are also there. So keep the conversation going, send those messages. And of course, we thank you so much for always tuning in. See you tomorrow, same time, same station. Good evening, Uganda.
The Alternative Dig Talk. Real issues, real talk.